And it's the dumbest bill in America, and it is, it's going to be an interesting one, reparations, a reparations task force. This is interesting, especially for millennials. So the dumbest bill in America is a task force for reparations. It was introduced by California Assemblywoman Shirley Weber, Democrat from San Diego. And Shirley Weber decided to put this bill in. It has passed the lower house in the state of California, has not passed the state Senate, and of course would also require Gavin Newsom's signature. So the task force is just that. It would study the issue of reparations.
It's a study bill.
Well, it's a task force bill, so it would be a task force
study,
but the task force would provide recommendations on how to equalize things. And I want your thoughts on this as millennials, because this is what you guys were taught.
Do you want? So I have two separate perspectives here. I have the millennial, and I'll give you the millennial perspective. But I also have how I view these task forces. These are the king of we want to do something without actually doing anything. You know, they're like, we have this very big progressive bill, and it establishes a task force which looks into what would happen if we actually did the thing you want us to do. And then they get the recommendation, they give the recommendation, and they never follow up with it. And it's just a way for them
100-page task force summary, and it eventually never gets implemented. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, usually for the most part, that's how task force bills. Until you get the one task force bill which turns into a couple $2 billion boondoggle that your state's stuck financing for 10 years.
Hint. So what are your thoughts on this? What's the millennial perspective now?
You know, my perspective on reparations, millennials as a whole are a big fan of them, you know, in terms of righting what they perceive as the wrongs of, you know,
so Chaz wants to give $10. They want white people to give every black person.
That is the start.
In Chaz, $10.
That's the start of a broader conversation, as the gentleman indicated. You know, if you can't do 10 now, you're not going to be able to do land, property, and wealth later. So
what does that mean?
You know, the person from Chaz is saying, you know, $10 now, and if you have a problem giving $10, how can we expect you to give property power?
So it's another bill that has no end in sight. There's no defined moment when you say there's equality. And see, this is where I come from a boomer standpoint, right? We should have, and we should always strive for more equality of opportunity at the starting gate of life.
Yeah.
At the starting gate of life, you want to give people the best opportunity that they can get and try to do your best to give them an equal opportunity, and that is education. Education. And the problem is that the blue state education systems in the blue state cities, the cities that are all governed by blue, for the most part, almost exclusively by blue woke mayors, have really bad public education systems, and they are blocking the idea of school choice. They won't let the money follow the student so you can get up and out. And that is the way you get up and out, through education. That's the first thing. And there also have to be other reforms too, which is, we've talked about this previously, 75% of black men do not stay around once they made a baby. They don't. And that is a fact. And so how do you equalize opportunity at the beginning of life if you have an entire generation, 75% of black young men and black young women who never knew their father or who never had a father figure? Go.
That's a lot to unpack. I think you make a lot of great points.
You're the one that talked about millennials think reparations are a good idea, but you give those reparations, you still don't have fathers in the homes. You still don't have true equality at the beginning of life with school choice. You don't have it because the public school systems run by the teachers unions and run by the Democrats, and they're in cahoots with each other, don't educate children.
Yeah, I think you make great points about education. You know, and it starts also not just with school choice. I also think, you know, society should really seriously look at early childhood education as well. You know, getting people a good start, you know, in pre-K and starting education a lot earlier than we do. By the time you're 5, you've got a lot of ingrained, you know, capacity to learn, and it's about fostering that at an earlier age, regardless of who you are, where you live, and you know. It also provides an outlet to start people earlier, gives them greater aptitude, and you see a lot of success stories in kids who do go to school earlier, and there is a disproportionate...
You also see a lot of success stories when parents read to their children at a very early age and continue to do so all throughout their grade school, pre-K to 5th grade. And you know what? That doesn't cost anything.
No.
That doesn't cost anything. That just, you know what that is? That costs time, and that's your job as a parent to do that.
Yeah.
Very few parents do it. And we have a first clip from Assemblywoman Shirley Weber, who put in this Reparations Task Force bill. And here is the first of 2 clips. Here it is.
Further, the bill would require the task force to recommend, among other things, the appropriate mechanism for redress as it pertains to California's role in the enslavement of black people and their afterlives. It also requires them to disseminate that information in an educational format so California can understand its relationship.
So there you have it. So she's talking about, some of the lists of demands. And of course, my argument would be school choice, school choice, school choice. That, by the way, would cost a lot of money. I'm all for it. I think for it.
The ends justifies the means. I mean, you're paying money up front, but I think your long-term investment, the dividends that we paid on it, is very important and good. And
before we're going to go on with this more, Garrick, but here is the second of 2 clips, the last clip of this podcast of Assemblywoman in California, Ms. Weber. And here it is.
Black people make up 8% of California's population. However, 43% of the homeless population in California are black people. According to the 2018 report by the Public Policy Institute of California, African Americans males account for 28% of the state's male prison population, despite the fact that black men make up just 5.6% of the state adult males. A recent study conducted by California Legislative Analyst's Office states that by nearly every state measure, black K-12 students have the lowest performance of any racial ethnic group. Even as we debate the need for this study, COVID-19 has shed a sobering light on the culmination of these persistent disparities. Emerging data confirms that a disproportionate burden of illness and death due to COVID-19 fall on the black community.
So that actually is true about COVID, but this Assemblywoman is trying to say, well, even that is racist. So COVID isn't racist. COVID, of course, is about science, and we need to learn more about the science of who it attacks and why and how it happens and who's the most vulnerable. And we do know a lot, and we keep learning. But that has nothing to do with reparations. I mean, the issue here is, if you look, why is it that you have individuals who come from decent households in black families and white families, and you have these folks who are doing well all throughout life because there's a mother present, there's a father present, there's education in the home, there's reading in the home. They limit the amount of TV you can watch and say, hey, how about if you read this book? How about if you read this article? You know what? The solution isn't always about money. The solution is about the common sense of bringing the family back into the center of your life.
I have an interesting thought about one of the things she talks about is the rate of incarceration, and I think that is one of the contributing factors to why, a lot of these families are the proverbial broken family. I also think a lot of these municipalities, these states, should look at how they view things, like what they make illegal. I think this society is too quick to make so many things illegal to a oomph degree. I mean, I think
you're talking about like marijuana. Right?
The easy one is like the easy example would be like the war on drugs and sentencing for certain drugs versus other ones, but also things like how bad. Well, but also you obviously have to have standards to enforce the law. You can't have people continuously committing theft and nothing happens to them. But also, you fail to pay a parking ticket and you're destitute, and now you're arrested and thrown in prison. I think that there's a line of how we should assess what is illegal.
I don't think you can be thrown into jail for not paying a parking ticket. I think more than likely what will happen is they'll put a boot on your car and then tow your car to a lot. But that's not a criminal offense.
I don't.
That's a civil offense.
I'm saying not that that's like the specific example I'm citing, but I'm saying generically things that
life is hard. Life is hard, and government is making life harder, especially in these blue cities. I actually very much agree with that, because I would never move to one of these blue cities and live in there as my permanent address. I just wouldn't, because I wouldn't want to put up with all the crap, the high taxes, the crime rate, and the fact that at any given time, the mayors of those cities might completely turn their back on you by saying, defund police.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that something as simple as school choice, and look, This California Assemblywoman, I can guarantee you, is bought and paid for by the teachers union because it's California, and there is no way that this individual who is black, Assemblywoman Shirley Weber, would ever want school choice, and that is the answer. Education is the answer. Just imagine if you don't have a father in the household, you could send your child to, your son, you could send your son to military school, right? Because he's out of control and he needs some sort of guidance, he needs some sort of discipline. You can't do it because you're a working mom and you're always working and you're not there either. There are solutions, right? And the solutions aren't easy solutions, but we got to go back to the basics of life, in my opinion.
The United States has solved a lot of its challenges in the world through the lens of education. You know, what was the United States' immediate reaction to the issues of losing the space race, right? So the Russians sent Sputnik into outer space, and we think we just got punched in the throat. We instituted major educational reform to incentivize the field of STEM and provide better educational outcomes for children across the United States. And it has done so much wonders for the United States. You know, investing in education is good, but investing in education in the right way is even more fruitful.
And well said.
And allowing kids to specialize specialize their education in certain fields and ways that best suit them. You know, one of my favorite I think it's Dr. Seuss stories is, they basically, or like quotes, is they say, putting everybody in public schools, like sometimes you're teaching a monkey to fish. It's not what it's designed to do. It's Dr. Seuss. But, having kids that learn different ways. You got to be careful
on podcasts these days when you use the word monkey because, I'm serious because there are a whole group of folks that even though that was in Dr. Seuss, which they might think that you're referring to someone of color, and we're not.
No, I'm just saying monkeys climb trees.
Make it very clear.
They don't fish.
By we, I mean him.
Yeah. Okay, I don't think anybody would have taken it that way, but all right.
Yeah, but no, I don't think they did either. But we're in cancel culture, right?
Yeah.
We're in this culture where if you just use any kind of language that can be taken the wrong way, that's where you are. And the thing is you sincerely, because you understand this because you do a lot of work in the legislature, you understand that there are some solutions are really easier than others, but we need to talk about this, probably a whole podcast to get the millennial perspective on this whole reparations thing, because it's interesting, because millennials actually, I do believe, think that this is something that has to happen.
That there is some kind of atonement that needs to be made
and my thought process is, as long as we keep having example after example of folks coming from India and from Pakistan and from all other parts of the world who come here with $2 in their pocket, and in that generation, they're already owning a small business and their kids are going to college. As long as we have that as an example, there is no excuse for the African American community to follow that same example, except for the fact that they're being, in my opinion, held back by the blue state mayors, the blue state governors, and in many cases, their own leadership that's telling them the reason you're not doing well is because, and it's not a zero-sum game, you're not doing well because that guy over there is doing well. That's not the way life works. You're not doing well because of what you're not doing. Final thoughts, and then we're going to go.
Your final thoughts are good enough for me.
And that's it for Mark and the Millennials. That's the dumbest bill in America. Thank you for joining Mark and the Millennials. This is Mark Fisher. Thank you to our millennial, Garrick Ross. And of course, our producer, Adam Couture, and our assistant producer, Christopher Hopkins. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our website. See you next time.